given what you have just described in Terra Nil, one, I want to go and play it because it sounds right up my street. But two, it's bananas that this comes from the same developer as Broforce.
Mm.
You know, Free Lives, from what I was researching, it's a very small group of people. It's not a big development house. And I guess it shows that when you are working in a smaller gang like that, you have an idea. If you think you can make something of it, you might as well give it a go. You're not working to kind of like set standards in the same way that, you know, if you produce a first-person shooter and that becomes your bread and butter, players then say, well, they're the people that make that. So that's kind of what I expect next. If you're making stuff like Genital Jousting and Broforce, it's like, well, who the fuck cares if you're going to make an eco-friendly kind of like clear 'em up simulator? It's like, what? Who cares? Anyway, Broforce. I always find it interesting how certain indie titles can cut through the noise. And it's hard to say kind of why some games find success and others don't. Years and years back, when I still read the website Destructoid for gaming news, so that will kind of give you some idea of how long ago I'm talking about, I remember seeing a preview of Broforce, and this would have been like post-indie boom, so a couple of years after Braid and Super Meat Boy and all those early Xbox Live Arcade hits. And yet Broforce, at the time, with just a PC demo, from what I recall, got given like quite a big write-up at Destructoid and other kind of major news outlets, whilst hundreds of other games that were being developed and released concurrently were just ignored. And it may have been because Broforce's central concept and character is immediately understandable, even from a static screenshot.
Mm.
You control a little pixel analog of a famous action movie star. It might be Indiana Jones, it might be Ellen Ripley, it might be the Terminator, it might be Ash Williams from The Evil Dead. And they've all got silly names that skirt copyright infringement. So you've got B.A. Broracus, you've got Brochette, you've got the Broniversal Soldier. And in each level, you're plonked into these procedurally generated 2D platform stages, and you run and or gun through waves of enemies and obstacles, basically trying to rescue further characters or bros before reaching an extraction point. At that stage, yep.
Is there a character called Rambro?
I think 100% yes. Honestly, I think that is the exact name. I think it's the exact name. So when you get to the extraction point, a helicopter will pick you up. The stage is then bombed into oblivion and razed to the ground, and before you know it, another level has loaded in. Now, to keep things fresh in Broforce, when you rescue a bro, you are forced to switch to that character. And this keeps you on your toes so that you never get too comfortable with a weapon or ability set. So just as you get into the rhythm of using, say, you know, the John McClane analogs machine gun, you'll find yourself having to get to grips with Blade's katana, which I think is called like Broade or bro I don't know.
It's called Braid.
Just, is he actually?
He is, yeah. I've looked it up because he is indeed called Rambro.
Yeah, there we go. So Death also forces a character swap with your pool of bros, like secondarily acting as lives as well. And that in itself, just the core concept, it's a really good, silly time. It feels good to play. It's good fun. Now, I first played Broforce via its PlayStation 4 port, which came out a long time after I'd initially seen it written up in about 2016. And I picked it up whenever it got the PlayStation Plus treatment. You know, it was free at the time. It just dropped into my library back when I was far more invested in the Sony ecosystem. And I had a great time playing through the entire thing in co-op with my brother Tom.
Nice.
And this is absolutely a throwback game to classic couch co-op. That's where it feels best, with stages turning into like an unreadable mess as up to 4 people are launching grenades or rockets all over the shop, just decimating the terrain because it's all completely destructible. And usually when you're playing like that, decimating yourself in the process as well. Now, doing some quick research, it seems like friendly fire may have been removed or certainly softened in more recent builds of the game, which I think is actually a real shame. Like when I played it the other night, I was playing it just single player just to catch up and remind myself of how it plays. The original setup obviously meant that making progress could sometimes be really tough if players weren't prepared to do just a bit of communication and planning. But equally, it meant that it was riotous fun all the time. Like this game, alongside Crackdown on the Xbox 360, are the co-op games I've enjoyed playing most with Tom over the years. And in both cases, it was because of how easy and funny it was to just fuck over your support. Like,
it's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. I remember kicking Tom off the top of a building. We spent over 15 minutes scaling in Crackdown and feeling like I was fully going to piss myself. Like it was so funny. We were doing it over Xbox Live. So he was at university, he was on the headset, and we did that. And then as his character was falling, he was just like, "What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?" and me like wheezing through the headset. And waiting until we got to the extraction point in Broforce before dropping like all of my grenades was almost as funny. So it's a shame if this has been stripped out in the game's onward patches and ports, because I think it was a big deal of what I enjoyed. But what makes this game more fun, aside from the co-op stuff, than most simple run and gun action games is how kinetic it all feels. So it's a game that uses liberal screen shake, liberal pixel particle effects, and kind of like bass boosted sound effects that work to really amp everything up, so that even careful play can feel really chaotic, because you might be trying to take a considered approach, and then it just falls apart when you find yourself having to use the bro in black and having to fire the noisy cricket as your weapon that just takes out half the stage and launches yourself halfway across the screen from its recoil. Something I really like about this game is its politics. Like, it's a stupid over-the-top action game, but I think it leans into the hyper-masculine, hyper-patriotic sort of Team America sort of rapping really knowingly. Hollywood films of the 1980s were all obsessed with draping every hero with like an American flag. And although there are exceptions where that was done with kind of a nod and a wink, far too many of them were very straight-faced, sort of just like, well, it's because America's the best country on the planet, isn't it? And that was very much how the script was written and how it got funding. You know, although Broforce is all about chaos and laughs and it's very light-hearted, the fact that it comes from a developer who is not American gives it just a bit more seasoning, because this is kind of like a third party that's sitting outside the US, looking at the media of the time period and, being able to say, we loved it, but also saying, but do you realise how stupid it all is? And when you add in the way that all the enemies are characterised as these sort of generic, nondescript terrorists, and the level end is always triggered by you planting the stars and stripes, and level wrap-ups boast of how you liberate an area before itemising exactly how many baddies you slaughtered. Like, it is saying something. Like, it's being silly, but it's saying something. It's got its own kind of message and its own politics. I'm a huge fan of this one, though, especially if you have powers to play it with. It's available on the PlayStation, like I mentioned, from way back. It's got a PC version, obviously. It's on the Switch, of course. It finally made its way to Xbox platforms, I think late last year, a very late port to the Xbox, but it's there now as well. And wherever you look, it's frequently cheap as chips. Like, I think I bought a digital copy on the Switch that I didn't need. It was just for completion's sake, but for about £2. And then years later, it now has a boxed copy as well, which I picked up as well to kind of have on the shelf and be like, there's Broforce. I like it. It's in the shelf. It's in the collection. But it's absolutely worth having in reserve for like a games night down the line. It's very good fun with other people. And
it's on my wish list.
Yeah, and as a quick aside, if you want to just test this one out for free, if you go on Steam, you can pick up the standalone Expender Bros game, which was an official tie-in to the similarly dumb and similarly knowing Expendables franchise. You know,
Brilliant.
So you could play as all the characters from those films in little pixel format. And it's only like an hour or two long, that version, but it's free.
Oh.
So if you want to just have a taste, it's there. And you might really enjoy it. So yeah, 2 very good South African games from one very good developer, Free Lives Games.